I was not good at math when I was in school. So now, as an adult, I wanted to get those skills to a point where I could feel happy and capable to hold my own on a sophomore college level. The thing that I struggled the most to understand, and I'm not really all the way there yet, was calculus. And the explanation that came the closest to make me understand it properly was the Achilles paradox. In it, Achilles is racing a tortoise. Because a tortoise is lower, naturally, it gets a hefty handicap, starting many paces in front of Achilles. As they run, Achilles is able to run to the position that the tortoise was a few moments ago, but as he is catching up, the tortoise walks up to another position further forward. Because of the paradox conceit, Achilles will always inch closer and closer while never actually being able to outrun the tortoise. We know it doesn't make sense in the real world because the speed of Achilles is independent of that of the tortoise, but as a story that is able to illustrate the concept of the mathematical limit, where the smaller values you deal with, the greater amount of resolution or precision that you get, is a pretty neat analogy. I might be using the wrong terminology or getting the concepts mixed up here, but the idea of Achilles and the tortoise helps me set up a dynamic that I have seen when it comes to the market regulations that have cropped up with the ever-growing threat of generative AI and art creation. For the most part, Gen AI creates really mediocre results. Understanding how the tool works and the necessary process to get what you want from it requires effort. Less effort than learning the skills to create art on your own, and to people who know communication skills, the idea of prompting is laughable to say the least. But prompting is an intuition that has to be built. Even after all that effort, the most essential part of the creative process with the usage of Gen AI is the editing step. You take the raw output from the program and mold it to shape your vision. After all, even in factory production lines, there's a quality assurance step to make sure that the automation did its job properly. This is where most detractors raise their first objection. You don't need a machine to do the raw work for you, you have to do the entire piece from scratch. And I understand the logic and the preconceptions that lead to that idea, but the reality is that you don't. Not anymore. Not ever. There always was delegation. There always was hiring. There always was a way to get people to do the work that you don't want to do. What they're essentially arguing is, if you're poor, you either learn to do it, or you don't get to do it at all. Therein lies the issue. It's a matter of payment, optics, and the morality of consumption. Right now, whenever you get data out of a Gen AI, the strong arming that you need to do to make it pass a human cognitive test of whether or not it's Gen AI is extensive. From wonky movement, to shading that makes no sense, to the common telltale style of most AI-generated images floating around. The current models create images that are, for the most part, pretty easily filterable, but that gap is slowly closing. And the people who earn a living by creating art find themselves in the dreadfully scary position of having their highly trained skill sets made mostly obsolete by technological advancement. I think that we all can tell that for a company, a subscription to a Gen AI product is a lot cheaper than professional labor. Not to mention faster. And to the unknowing or uncaring eyes, the results are just as good, if not even better. We already live in a sanitized world where personal, genuine expression has been superseded by corporate-friendly, mainstream-approved versions of the imagery that we can see. Every 3D model has to look like a Pixar character. Every cute mascot has to look like a Sanrio character or a Minion. Hell, every mascot has to be cute in the first place. It doesn't matter to the corporate eye who, mind you, are the ones that have the money and the power to dictate the direction of the public's taste. What the origin of these pictures is, as long as it's cheap, fast, and that it is met with the approval from the relevant focus groups. The human component of art was already dead long before modern AI was conceived. We already live in the world of statistical averages. Artists who have a unique view or want to make work that is radically different from that of the accepted canon in their field are sadly turned away in favor of the generic and easily marketable. This is where the market filtering mechanism comes into play. If I am, say, an artist or a production crew for a marketing film, and it takes me more time and money to recreate something that a company can create with the assistance of Gen AI in half the time and at a much lower cost due to digital automation, you can bet your ass I'm gonna panic. So naturally, it's in my interest to do my best to try and propagandize the market in such a way that the public outcry for companies saving money by using Gen AI becomes a hit to their public image so large that they are at least hesitant to consider making the shift. When artists see Gen AI, they don't really see it as a tool that can help individuals with their own personal weaker flanks when it comes to artistic expression. They see it as a very real, imminent threat that their skill set is seen as irrelevant by the owning class despite its evident human value. Once again, as with everything internet related, most people are complaining about the moral consequences of Gen AI usage and not the material causes of Gen AI being a problem for working people. The labor conditions that demand that common people have to work ungodly amounts of time, fighting a desperate market where salaries are in a constant race to the bottom and the vast majority of wealth being placed in the hands of the few because they had the upper hand in hiring people to actually do the work and underpay them for that work is the problem. Not a computer, not AI stealing your work. The true problem is that our society exists in a state where, despite having over a century of automation that could have solved every human need since the times of the early Industrial Revolution, but we have to suffer the indignities of poverty all over the world. People can't just work their 2 hours a day, get a comfortable salary for said work, and go home to live the heightened lives that the abundance of our technological advancement should have granted us over a century ago. So, Gen AI is the Achilles to the artist's turtle. It's always inching closer and closer to a point where people who are staunchly anti-AI are beginning to unknowingly like AI-generated work, and people who are legitimate artists are getting flagged as AI quote-unquote thieves. The problem isn't AI. The problem is the society and the system around it. And regarding this video's topic, the problem is the market control mechanism itself, along with the moral panic that has attached itself to it. A moral panic doesn't change anything. I mean, when has it, after all? A moral panic serves only as a distraction that overrides the public's capacity for dialogue. When everyone's too busy telling everyone else how they're the ones who are on the right side of anything, people can never move on to true progress, dialectical progress. For dialectical progress, you need a thesis, an antithesis, and a synthesis. This is yet another instance of me saying, whether you like it or not, Gen AI is here to stay, and we better learn how to live with it and how to understand its strengths and limitations, since we, as common folk, are the ones who are going to actually have to live with it and deal with the consequences of its existence. Anyways, that's it for this video. If you watched it all the way to this point, I give you my sincere thanks for hearing me out. Remember to race to the like button, watch that heel on your way to subscribing to the channel, and press the bell to adjust the market of your subscription feed whenever I post a new video or stream. And as always, until next time, have a great time.